It's 50,000 BC. The sun just went down. There's no Netflix, no phone, no light switch. Let me just check one more thing before bed. There's just you, a fire, and about 12 hours of total darkness ahead of you. So here's a question almost nobody ever asks. What did people actually do? For most of human history, half of every single day was spent in darkness, so complete you couldn't see your own hand in front of your face. That's not a small detail. That's half of human existence. And the answer to what they did in all that darkness is so much stranger and so much more human than you'd ever expect. Because here's the thing that's going to mess with your head a little. Your ancestors didn't sleep the way you sleep, and the way they were awake at night might have been the thing that made us human in the first place. Let's start with just how dark the ancient world actually was. We have completely lost the ability to understand this. When you say dark today, you mean the street light is annoyingly bright through your curtains. You mean you stubbed your toe looking for the bathroom. That's not darkness. Real darkness, the kind our ancestors lived in every single night, is absolute. No light pollution, no glow on the horizon from a distant city, no tiny LED on a charger blinking across the room, just blackness. Total, complete, swallowing blackness. The kind where your eyes never adjust because there's nothing to adjust to. And in that darkness, things hunted. Lions, hyenas, leopards. Most of the major predators of the ancient world are most active at dawn, dusk, and through the night, which meant that when the sun went down, early humans went from being the dominant force in the landscape to being a soft, slow, poorly equipped snack for something with far better night vision. So what did you do? You didn't wander. You grouped up. You found somewhere defensible, a cave with one entrance, a spot with your back to the rock. And then, about 400,000 years ago, everything changed. Fire. The moment humans controlled fire, the entire nature of the night transformed, and not just for the obvious reasons. Everyone knows fire kept people warm and kept predators away, but that's not the interesting part. Here's the interesting part. Think about what you can actually do around a fire at night. You can't work, you can't hunt, you can't gather, you can't do anything productive in the way daylight allows. What you can do is sit and look at each other and talk. Researchers who study modern hunter-gatherer societies found something remarkable about this. During the day, conversation is practical. Who's going where? What needs doing? Logistics, the ancient version of a work meeting. But at night, around the fire, the conversation completely changes. At night, people tell stories. Around 80% of nighttime campfire conversation in these societies is storytelling. During the day, it's about 6%. Read that again. During the day, logistic. At night, stories. Stories about ancestors. Stories about how the world began. Stories about what it means to be brave or generous or a person worth knowing. And this matters more than it sounds, because stories are how culture survives. Without writing, without books, without any way to record anything, stories around the fire were the hard drive of the entire human species. The campfire was the first cinema. The storyteller was the screen. And sitting around that fire, night after night, for hundreds of thousands of years, telling each other stories about things that didn't exist, might literally be the reason we became the kind of creature that can imagine. Fire didn't just protect us. It may have built human imagination itself. Now here's where it gets genuinely strange, and this might actually change how you feel about waking up at 3 a.m. You probably believe that the natural, healthy way to sleep is one solid 8-hour block. You wake up at 3 a.m., you can't fall back asleep, you panic. You assume something is wrong with you. By 4 a.m., you've diagnosed yourself with 3 disorders on the internet. Here's the thing, that assumption might be completely, historically wrong. There's a historian named Roger Eckhurch who spent years going through thousands of old documents, diaries, court records, medical texts, literature, and he found something astonishing. For most of human history, people didn't sleep in one block. They slept in 2. It was called first sleep and second sleep. You'd go to bed a couple hours after dark, sleep for 3 or 4 hours. Then you'd wake up naturally, not in a panic, just calmly, around midnight, and you'd stay awake for an hour, sometimes 2. Then you'd go back to sleep until morning. This isn't a fringe theory. Eckhurch found over 2,000 references to it in a dozen languages, going all the way back to ancient Greece. Homer mentions it. Medieval literature is full of it. Legal documents treat it as completely ordinary. And what did people do during that hour awake in the middle of the night? Everything. They prayed. In many traditions, the quiet hours between midnight and dawn were considered the most sacred time to connect with something greater. They reflected on their dreams, which were taken far more seriously then than now, and which were vivid because you'd just woken directly out of them. They had sex. A 16th century French doctor actually recommended it, noting that people were more rested and did it better after the first sleep. They tended the fire, checked on children, visited neighbors in the dark like it was the most normal thing in the world, because it was. It wasn't insomnia. It wasn't a disorder. It was just the night doing what the night had always done. The reason this pattern disappeared is almost certainly artificial light. Once you can keep a room bright late into the evening, your bedtime shifts later, your sleep compresses into one block, and that natural gap in the middle vanishes. So if you've ever woken up at 3 a.m., calm and clear-headed, and just laid there thinking for an hour before drifting back to sleep, you're not broken. You're remembering something your body was never supposed to forget. Here's something else we completely lost. For ancient humans, the night wasn't just empty time to survive until morning. The night was a tool, a resource, a library. Take navigation. The Polynesians crossed thousands of miles of open Pacific Ocean, finding tiny islands in an expanse bigger than all the world's landmasses combined, with no compass, no instruments, no maps. They did it mostly at night. They had memorized the rising and setting positions of hundreds of individual stars. They could read the ocean's swells with their bodies. They turned the night sky into the most sophisticated navigation system on Earth, and they carried the whole thing in their head. Or take the ancient Maya. They built entire cities aligned to the movements of planets only visible at night. Their observatory at Chichen Itza tracked Venus with extraordinary precision, and they used those movements to decide when to go to war. The night sky wasn't decoration. It was a calendar, a clock, a map, and a sacred text all at once. Even metalworkers used the dark. Iron Age smiths in what is now Zimbabwe deliberately worked their forges at night, because in daylight you can't see the subtle color changes in hot metal that tell you its exact temperature. In darkness, they could read the metal perfectly. They turned the night into a precision instrument. This is the part we've forgotten most completely. Ancient humans didn't just endure the dark. They mastered it. They mapped it. They made it useful in 100 ways we've simply stopped needing. So let's be honest about what happened. We defeated the night. Electric light, central heating, locked doors, screens that glow in the dark. We won completely. The night holds almost no power over us anymore. And to be clear, that was worth it. Running water, antibiotic, the ability to read at 11 p.m., the entire modern world. Nobody's romanticizing dying of an infection at 30, but something was traded away in the process. We lost the campfire circle, the shared stories in the dark that built culture for 100,000 years. We lost the natural two-part sleep with its strange, clear-headed middle hour. We lost the sky. Most people alive today have never seen the Milky Way. The thing that guided navigators across oceans and told the Maya when to plant their crop is now invisible to most of humanity behind a dome of city light. We lost the deep, ancient comfort of darkness itself, of lying awake in the middle of the night with nothing to do and nowhere to be. Our ancestors weren't afraid of the night. They lived in it. They worked in it, told stories in it, navigated by it, worshipped through it. For them, the night wasn't the absence of day. It was a whole other world, with its own rules, its own skills, and its own kind of meaning. So, what did ancient humans actually do at night? They told the stories that became culture. They slept in two natural phases and woke in the middle to think, to pray, to connect. They held each other warm against a cold that could kill. They read the stars like a book and crossed oceans by them. They turned darkness into a tool, a calendar, a cathedral. The night wasn't empty. The night was full. So the next time you wake up at 3 a.m., clear-headed, calm, thoughts moving quietly through the dark, don't reach for your phone. Don't panic. Just lie there for a while. Think whatever you need to think. Be awake the way your ancestors were awake, quietly, completely, in the middle of a night that has always, always belonged to you. You're not malfunctioning. You're remembering.